everybody naturally, like if you make it into the executive role, like you're naturally really good at one kind of aspect of something that comes very innate to you, whether it's like motivating people, maybe it's like you have a really good business sense and you technically know the right business move to do. There's always like one really strong superpower, but then behind that is always this like kryptonite that for everyone that, and it's like the leaders that are great are the ones that can take that area and go, I am willing to look at it. Like I'm willing to pull back the curtain and go, I might have the right business move, but the way that I'm moving in the organization doesn't motivate people. Or like, I think it's just so spot on and such a hard truth. And honestly, it's been, I'm sure for you too, but much of my leadership journey and growth journey was on those secondary areas where they didn't come naturally for me. And I had to cultivate and grow in that way.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to look at leadership at all levels of the company. Why it's important to lead powerfully, not just at the C level, but at the VP level, the director level, the manager level, because leadership at all levels is required for real transformative experience at work, but also innovative growth and really predictable growth of the company. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach, but my special guest today is AdamWeber. Adam comes to us with experience with employee engagement. He owned a company and sold it, and he's now an executive coach. And so we talked about executive leadership. We talked about the no asshole policy. We talked about leadership alignment inside of our CEOs. We talked about managers' leadership. And the summary of this is leadership at all levels is required if you want growth. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We work with CEOs and CEO coaching. We also do executive leadership alignment. We also do manager to leader coaching. And so all of those things together is leadership at all levels. So this episode really does kind of embody a lot of the things that we believe as an organization, but it's also how we make a difference for our clients. And so if you're curious about any of these, make sure you reach out to me, gene@genehammett.com. And if you're not really ready for a conversation, I get it. You want to look at coreelevation.com and check out our virtual conversations. These are unique conversations with other guests been on the show before, some of my clients and some other potential prospects that are listening in. They want to activate more growth, want to make leadership a competitive advantage for their organization. We do a different one every month. So if you find something that resonates with you, sign up, show up, and be ready to grow and ask your questions and maybe even add some wisdom to the conversation. All you have to do is go to coreelevation.com/virtual conversations and sign up today. Now here's the interview with Adam. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Gene, how are you? Good to be back.
I am great. It has been a long time. You were kind of working with as a brand ambassador for 15Five and doing some great work over there, and they're continuing to plug along. But now you're on to a new thing. So tell us about what's new for you.
Yeah, it was I'm super grateful for my time at 15Five and really involved still like in being a supporter of them. But it was time. I've, for the last 4 years, I've coached executives on the side and like just gotten involved in their own growth and development. And it's work I've kind of known deep down this is what I wanted to do for a long time. But it was time. I had enough conversations with my kind of current clients and really had just realized like this is the work for me to do, and that I wanted to be able to just spend my full time kind of building AdamWeber coaching. So here we are.
You're on the right track because I can see the gray in your beard. So you've got the ability to give advice to people. If you
That's what I was waiting. That's what I was waiting on. My last interview with you, I was like, see, I know I want to do this, but I'm not quite there yet. But then now it's like I'm ready.
It's coming in. Mine's coming in as well. When you have, I want to talk a little bit about the work that you saw from 15Five. Like you guys were collecting data across companies, and I'm sure it's changed the way you look at organizations and performance of organizations and how you actually are doing your executive coaching. What stands out is kind of the key data that you latched onto that has affected your coaching here.
That is a great question. And just for context for the listeners, prior to 15.5, I had an employee engagement measurement company too that I sold to 15.5. And so have been intimately involved with like millions of employee data points and like kind of looking at that macro sense of like what motivates an employee, what causes people to not show up to work like as their best self, what creates cultures that don't innovate. I mean, it's all those things. And if I had to summarize a decade of work, like it would be two things. One is that there are a bunch of individual managers that got promoted, who were, or individual contributors who got promoted into management who have no discernible management skills, and there's no great infrastructure for them. And they are overstressed doing the job of all their direct reports, and exhibiting basically no delegation or great leadership qualities or setting goals and priorities. And it's just wreaking total havoc on cultures. That would be one. And the other I would say is really, and it's deeper than this. I actually have never been able to like go. I always say the punchy headline, which is good, but it's deeper than this. But the other one is that there is an asshole on the executive team. And for whatever reason, that person is deemed too valuable to, and maybe this is what your book's about, to have that tough conversation, like to actually like either move on or like actually coach this person to adjust. But the ripple of that one person is really significant because it creates this culture of psychological unsafety where people just kind of like show up and do a job and they do the bare minimum and they try to not get fired. And it's like the opposite of a highly engaged, highly innovative, people fixing broken processes. It's just kind of like this eggshell based culture where no one is truly committed to the work and everyone's a little scared.
It's certainly a type of tough conversation. It's not exclusively to the asshole.
Yeah, not always that, I hope.
But I mean, and this came up the other day in one of my workshops, and I'll kind of toss it out to you because I know how I answered it. One of the employees in the workshop said, "Do our managers or do the people above us with more authority, more leadership, really want feedback from us about their performance or about their attitude or something's out of alignment?" What do you think the truth there is?
In the moment, no, and with some reflection, yes. Is
Yeah.
probably the real truth. Like it's hard. Like you've probably, I mean, I'm sure you've had it too. Like it is hard to hear that you're not amazing. It just always is hard. Like I had an employee engagement company, and every single time we ran an engagement survey, I got triggered. And so I started to get used to just going, you know what, 24 hours. Like I'm just, as soon as that survey results happen, I'm going to read it in the morning. I'm going to take the rest of the day and just process and not have any interactions. Don't react. Like, and there's something once it settles and you go, actually, these people just want what's best for them. They want what's best for me and they want what's best for the company. If I stop taking it so personally, it's like you really view it as valuable, but it's, receiving feedback is a lot harder than people realize, like, or give credit for how hard it is.
One of my mentors said something, and I can't quote who said this. So if anyone knows, they can certainly correct me because I just can't label it, but something to the effect of you're only going to grow, relational to the amount of truth that you can withstand about yourself.
Oh, can you? That's like, I feel like that is so true, and like so much of the leadership journey is that like, you and I, before we press record, I was telling you like this last week, I just announced this last week. So I've had, about the coaching practice, I've had all these conversations with executives, and like this one overwhelming topic just keeps coming up is like, there's everybody naturally, like if you make it into the executive role, like you're naturally really good at one kind of aspect of something that comes very innate to you, whether it's like motivating people, maybe it's like you have a really good business sense and you technically know the right business move to do. There's always like one really strong superpower, but then behind that is always this like kryptonite that for everyone, that, and it's like the leaders that are great are the ones that can take that area and go, I am willing to look at it. Like I'm willing to pull back the curtain and go, I might have the right business move, but the way that I'm moving in the organization doesn't motivate people. Or like, I think it's just so spot on and such a hard truth. And honestly, it's been, I'm sure for you too, but much of my leadership journey and growth journey was on those secondary areas where they didn't come naturally for me. And I had to cultivate and grow in that way.
Now, I know that Adam just mentioned an asshole executive. So let me clarify this. I've been doing this for about 14 years now, and I've seen definitely where some people are the designated assholes. They'll own that title. Some people are a little bit more passive aggressive in their assholery. But what I wanted to highlight for you today is if you tolerate that as the CEO of a company or as a fellow leader on this team, then you're not really getting to the point of this. My hope is that you're willing to engage in a tough conversation. It doesn't have to be too difficult when you understand the different phases. This is a phase one conversation. If you've never had the conversation before about someone being an asshole, and I wouldn't frame it just like that, you might figure out what your questions are and what you really want to get to. I wrote the book called How to Have Tough Conversations. And so that, yes, this is a little bit self-serving, but if you're struggling at all with someone being an asshole on your team, you want to get this book and you want to dive into it because it unlocks your ability to lead them to a higher level and really create more alignment and trust. And so you can get it wherever you buy books, How to Have Tough Conversations. Back to Adam. I know part of your work, Adam, is around authentic leadership. Could you give us an idea of what you mean by authentic leadership?
Yeah, to me, my book is called Lead Like a Human, and it's really this belief that like one of the cool things about leadership is that it really does expose the thing you just said. It exposes these gaps and issues and growth edges and all of these things to you. And there's an opportunity to live a more full, meaningful life when you're willing to face those. And when you're willing to show your employees that you're a real human being who's on a real human journey yourself, and you bring that authenticity into the workspace, and you also are willing to kind of let leadership be an incredible aspect of what your human experience is. So it's doing that hard work. It's things like putting disciplines in place in your life, like gratitude practices and prioritizing your health and rooting yourself in things that are important, like not just being a person who gets sucked into the current stressor of this very moment, of this one business problem being the most important thing in the world, but staying grounded and rooted in how you lead people as well.
I want to go back to something you were talking about, the people that are getting promoted. High performers, I see this quite often, and they're asked to lead a team, but they have no skills for management. A lot of executives will say, well, they'll just learn it on the job. Yeah, that's part of it. You learn, but that's a pretty slow way to learn. I don't know if you have a different perspective on how do you actually develop the managers, and the words I use are to be the leaders that we need them to be as in an organization. Um,
Yeah.
what is your thoughts on that concept?
Well, first off, when I hear this all the time too, this learning on the job concept of like, but here's what learning on the job actually turns into. They got to that role because they're really good at the job and they just do the other people's jobs for them. Like that is the innate response of a high performer who got promoted. And then they're not enabling their team, they're not investing in their skill development. And so they hit this breaking point that always happens, which is like, and then they're mad at the team because I'm doing everything and you're not doing your job. And they get stressed out and it's like a wholly unsustainable thing. The counter to that, I would say, is are you a person who is willing to learn how to delegate, how to set clear expectations? I think the very hardest part of management is every single week genuinely thinking about for your direct reports what work you want them to do and what good looks like and defining what good looks like. Then the second part to that, and this doesn't happen easily, this is right in your wheelhouse. How do you have honest conversations about how they're doing against that plan? And real time, all the time, regularly say the hard thing that needs to be said so that they hear it. Don't wait. And then, I mean, I think there's this other component at the team level, which is motivating and inspiring people. Do we have a way to get a group of people to go, this is that big goal we're all after and it matters, and here's why it matters in the business, here's why it matters in the world, and here's why it matters to you. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard job, but it takes work and time to develop and cultivate those skills.
You get the value of this book that we wrote. I'm going to hold it up for those who are watching on video, but How to Have Tough Conversations. I'm just kind of curious, and I know you haven't read it yet. I'm happy to send you a copy, Adam.
I'll take it.
But when you have engaged with people about tough conversations, specifically, the executives that you're coaching, why do you think they resist them so much?
I think that a tough conversation usually means that a change is coming, and or that there's a possibility of change, and a lot of people are really scared of change. one of the most common conversations I have on this tough conversation concept is with an executive who maybe feels like they've given critical feedback to an employee that's not performing, or to another, or if it's a CEO, to another executive that's not performing, and it like hasn't landed. And so one of the things, I just had a conversation with a C-suite who was talking to one of their team members, and I was like, you need to be so explicit at the start that it sounds something like this, like, hey, this is going to be a tough conversation, but I need you to hear me because I care about you and I care about what, your career. And then say the hardest, like say the actual thing. Don't beat around the bush. Like just say the actual thing, because now we're at least working from the same set of information. And too often I see these leaders make these assumptions like, oh, surely they understand also how they're not meeting my expectations. And they just get more and more disappointed versus making meaningful progress. And the other part is when you do that, let's just say it. So there's the one option, which is like you fix the issue and the person adjusts, right? The other is that if it doesn't work, it's an honest way to help someone know a role's not for them. You can still hang your, you can be proud of that. You can have a great relationship with those people afterwards. And there's like a civility and a respect to it too, that I think is just what great leaders do.
Now, Adam was talking again about tough conversations. And so I'm going to mention the book again, not because I'm trying to sell you the book, but he mentions this is serious, and what he's never read my book before. But in our book, we put a formula together that helps you with the entry point for a conversation. We think that the shit sandwich doesn't work. Me and my wife, who wrote this book, it doesn't work because the compliments that go on the bun side and the feedback that's in the middle, people only hear what they want to hear. And so they may hear the good stuff, but not really connect with the things that they need to hear and where they need to grow. And so what we suggest instead is an entry point formula where it starts out with, this is serious, so that you're really calling attention to it and you're able to frame in there. And there's a few more pieces to it, but I won't go into everything. If you want to get the resources for that, you don't have to buy the book. Just go to correlation.com and you can find our book there. But if you want to go straight to it, just go to howtohavetoughconversations.com/resources. You can download them today. We'll give you the framework. We'll give you the entry point formula. Everything is in there. You can read the book if you want to go deeper, but you don't even have to. Back to Adam. Well said. What you didn't say, maybe you have a different perspective, but in the book, I talk about how the shit sandwich does not work because most people only hear the compliment side of the shit sandwich, not the part you really need them to hear.
That's so true though. I feel like that's why that's the start, like just starting with like, this is one of the hard this is a real moment we're having, right? And then just like say exactly, usually it's somebody calling me going, I don't know how to have this conversation, man. What do I do? And I'm like, first start it, change the atmosphere. Like, cause if you don't change the atmosphere, they don't know. Like they don't know they kind of view it as like status quo land. Like, okay, cool. It's just a normal meeting and nothing happened. And they don't hear it. The other thing I do, I mean, I learned this the hard way because this is my like growth area, was naturally like really like being liked, really like being viewed as like this inspiring person or things like that. And with my employees, I just was too nice. And until one of them that I was friends with, I had to fire, and it went horribly. This is 15 years ago. And he was stunned and shocked and embarrassed. And we end up in this conversation. I was like, and we end up in a conversation. I was like, oh, that was the actual conversation. Like it took place obviously way too late. And it was just through honestly messing up and hardships. I realized like no one deserves that. Like that's not what great leadership looks like. Great leadership looks like being willing to just say it in advance so that we both know the set of facts that I'm making my decision based on.
I think you've really nailed it. I know that you've had a lot of experience with organizations and this the whole disengagement of this. Let's wrap up today with talking about engagement. I think there's a lot, I can't remember when I exactly heard the quiet quitting. I want to say it was through COVID. Now they've added the quiet vacationing, which is really costing a lot of organizations. And I've debated this with different people. Do you think quiet quitting and quiet vacationing is still an issue for organizations?
I do. I do, because I think there's still I think until the job market, people are switching jobs more often and there's like a hunger. There is, I believe, like a kind of a collective apathy in the workforce. People who have like stayed at their job for a long time, maybe the company's not like growing rapidly, so their role hasn't changed. And so maybe they can even kind of do the job functionally without having to be stretched. And to me, I mean, the antidote is really a stretching, clear goal that rallies people. like that, and that kind of helps create some momentum and life and vibrancy like on a team.
I like the way you put that. How do you help your executives come up with that stretching, clear goal that rallies people?
For me, some of it is like starting with divergent thinking, going, let's put every idea on the table that's the most important idea. And now let's keep reducing and keep reducing and keep reducing until we get to the real most important thing that like makes you a little nervous and creates a little bit of a spark, right? And it's like, and then how do we stay laser focused on that thing? I think is, and it's really literally the way I do it is like write down all the things that we need to be focused on in this business, and you'll get 10 to 15 things in an executive room. Give them little stickers, have everybody vote. You get 3 votes. What's the most important thing? And then we'll have a debate. We'll have that a tough conversation, and get to a spot where there's genuine consensus on what the work is that needs to be done, like the true work that needs to be done.
I love that exercise. And I think a lot of people just don't slow down enough to do it. They will rather complain about executive teams not being in alignment, but something like this would be like, hey, let's just have fun with this. There shouldn't be no resistance in doing that exercise, but they just don't take the time to do it.
Right. Then and the opposite happens, which is then we go, okay, cool, we're going to sign up for everything, which means you're signing up for nothing. And which means that your employees can still stay in that kind of apathetic, like slide under the radar type of state.
I want to kind of give us one more chance, Adam. Your book is, I'm going to go back to the title of it, but
Lead Like a Human.
Lead Like a Human. What is the big idea behind the book that would see if, would let someone know that this book is for them?
I think it's for anyone who wants to build an amazing culture, and they want to build like a real a successful business, but they also want to do it in a way that is deeply connected to who they are. They don't want to have to kind of disassociate one aspect of their humanness in order to run the business. And so they're looking to kind of reconcile those things. I want to build a high performance team, and I want to do it in a way that is deeply my own. I think those are the people in it. And the book just lays out kind of the 5 ways that you can practically build a vibrant culture that is in tune with who you are as well.
I'm assuming they're using assessment tools that it doesn't have to be, 15-5, but you believe in getting feedback from people to assess the culture and where it's going, right?
Yeah, that is one of the components. One is your own personal grounding and centeredness practices yourself. Like, do you have, hobbies and gratitude, like I talked about? One is setting a vision for the company, and how do you actually like set a vision and bring it to life? Like, why does this company matter in the world? Your values, how do you actually activate your values and have a company that doesn't just say they have values, but they're like lived and integrated and woven into the like fabric of the business? Then that clarity of goal setting that you and I had just talked about. It's like, is that operationalized throughout the entire company, where each individual knows that stretching but attainable goal that's in front of them? Do they get regular feedback on it? And then, leveraging data and feedback to help you make wise decisions. I think I just did the whole book in 30 seconds.
That's a great way for us to end this. I definitely appreciate you being here, sharing your wisdom, Adam.
Thanks, Gene. It was so good. Thanks for having me back. It was good to be with you.
Wow, what a great interview. I love his clarity. I love talking about, being a human as a leader. And it really is a powerful aspect to all of leadership, is to be truly human and understand what that means as you grow as a leader and evolve. We've been talking about leadership at all levels, so hopefully you've gotten a lot out of today's conversation. If there's anything we can do for you as an organization, make sure you reach out to us, gene@genehammett.com. That's my email. And when you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.